Hello there, my name's Adrian. Welcome to another blues rhythm guitar lesson. We've already talked about 7th chords, we've talked about 9th chords. In today's lesson we're going to be looking at 13th chords. Now a 13th chord is just another type of dominant chord. Wherever you can play a 7th chord or a 9th chord, you've got the option of playing a 13th chord instead. The difference with a 13th chord is it's got a particularly jazzy kind of a sound, so it's not going to work in all blues contexts. I mean, if you're playing a kind of raw down home type of blues, you probably wouldn't want to be throwing in too many 13th chords. But if you're after a bit more of a jazzy, sophisticated uptown blues sound, then 13th chords will certainly fit the bill. The reason they're called 13th chords is because they include a note which is the 13th note of the respective major or dominant scale. So if we're in the key of G today, count up our G scale until you reach the 13th note, which in this case is an E, and that's the note which we're going to add into our chord to make it a 13th chord. In theory terms, strictly speaking, a 13th chord includes the root, the 3rd, the 5th, the flattened 7th, the 9th, the 11th and the 13th notes of the major scale. But in practice you're not going to be playing all of those notes when you play a 13th chord, not least because it's physically impossible to do that on a guitar, but because not all of those notes are essential chord tones. You only want the ones which are essential to giving the chord its 13th sound, so you might only play 4 of those notes at any one time. Now I want to show you some 13th chord voicings that I was using at the start of the lesson. I've got 3 13th chords for you. I think they're all very practical and useful voicings. I think it's far better on the guitar to know a few good and useful ways of playing these chords rather than knowing hundreds of kind of useless voicings which you see in some of these chord dictionary type books. So the first voicing I've got for you is this one. It's a G13 chord. The root is on the low E string. I'm playing that note with my first finger, the 3rd fret of the low E string. The A string is going to be muted. I'm just leaning into that string with the underside of my first finger. Then I'm playing the 3rd fret on the 4th string with my 2nd finger. I'm playing the 4th fret on the 3rd string with my 3rd finger, and I'm playing the 5th fret on the 2nd string with my little finger. There we go, that's our G13. Some people actually like to play the 5th fret on the high E string with their little finger as well, just bar 2 notes there, just to have a different note on top, so that's quite a good variation of that voicing. The second voicing looks like this. There we go. Which is actually very much like our 9th chord voicing that we looked at in the previous lesson. This is a G13th chord. I've got my 2nd finger at the 10th fret on the A string. 1st finger is at the 9th fret on the D string. Then my 3rd finger is barring across the 10th fret of the 1st, 2nd and 3rd strings. That's our G9 chord. To make it into a 13, I'm just going to stretch out with my little finger to play the note which is at the 12th fret on the high E string. That's the E note, which is our 13th. And that's our G13 voicing. The third voicing I've got for you looks like this. This is a kind of a lesser known voicing, but a really good and useful one. It's actually a rootless voicing, or there's no root note in the bass of this chord. I'm playing the 8th fret on the A string with my 1st finger, 9th fret on the 4th string with my 3rd finger, 9th fret on the 3rd string with my little finger, and then I'm just tucking my 2nd finger down on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. It's a G13, but as I said, there's no root in the bass of this chord. We've got a G note on top of this chord. So whenever I'm playing chords which don't have a root, it's important for me to know where the root is so I can stay orientated and I can use the chord and play it in different positions and in different keys. So in the case of this particular chord, I'm thinking of this note here, the G at the 10th fret on the A string, as being kind of an imaginary root, and I can sort of see that note lighting up, and then I'm playing the chord, my first finger's down 2 frets from that imaginary root note, if that makes any sense. But I think that's important just so you can stay orientated when you're using these chords. So we've got our 3 voicings. We've got the 6th string root voicing, we've got this one up here, and we've got our rootless voicing. I want to spend the rest of the lesson just talking about ways which you can put these chords together in a 12-bar blues context, combine them with some of the other 9th chords that we know to come up with some interesting rhythm patterns. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you how I played the blues down in this area of the neck at the top of the lesson. For my 1 chord, I was using our new 13th chord voicing. Then for the 4 chord, I was changing to a C9 in this voicing, root on the 5th string. And for the 5 chord, I was just moving that up 2 frets and playing a D9. So you got the 1, the 4, and the 5. With the 4 and the 5, you've got the option of throwing in that 13th note by stretching up your little finger, so you can play C13 or D13, so you can throw that in whenever it feels good. For the second 12-bar chorus that I played at the start of the lesson, I was playing some voicings in this area of the neck. I started off with our new rootless G13 voicing, and that was my 1 chord. For the 4 chord, I was playing this, which is our rootless 9th chord voicing from the previous lesson. And this G13 and C9 actually work together really well. They make for a really smooth change between the 1 and the 4. So just to remind you, that C9 voicing, it's the 7th fret on the 5th string, 8th fret on the 4th string, 7th fret on the 3rd string, and 8th fret on the 2nd string. And as you can see, if you're going from that G13 to C9, the top note, G note, actually stays the same. It's in common between those 2 chords, and that makes for a really smooth sound when you're changing between them. That's often a really good thing to pay attention to when you're putting together chord progressions and rhythm guitar ideas, is to listen to the top note in each of the chords and to try and make it lead smoothly from one chord to the other. It can either be the same note or it can change to a note that is close by. It's what's known as voice leading, and it's what makes for nice smooth rhythm guitar parts. But back to our 12-bar blues, we've got our 1 chord G13, our 4 chord C9, and for our 5 chord we'll just take that same C9 voicing up 2 frets to play a D9. So that way we can play an entire 12-bar blues all in that one area of the neck with some very smooth sounding chord voicings. Now I'm going to leave it up to you to experiment with these voicings. I'm not going to take you through exactly what I played at the start of this lesson. You can go back and have a listen to that and try and see what I was doing rhythmically there. I'm not going to take you through all of that, not least because it would be incredibly tedious for me to talk you through all of those rhythms, but mainly because I think it's important for you at this stage to be experimenting on your own and coming up with your own rhythmic approach using the voicings that I have shown you. The other thing I was doing quite a lot of is passing chords and approach chords, something I've spoken about before. So when you're on the 1 chord, you've got the option of just going 1 fret below or 1 fret above and approaching the target chord, just to add a bit more harmonic spice. So I think that's about it for this lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. As usual, check out the website. I'll be putting out the sheet music to what I played at the start of the lesson. There'll also be a jam along backing track, and I hope to see you for some more blues rhythm guitar very soon. Bye bye.